Hello and welcome to Sitecore community. We, Sugin, are now presenting today Sitecore uCommerce made easy. Just to go a little bit back, we started this Sugin 3 years back, the same day. We conducted around 4 sessions. Then it was stopped for the next year, the past year, and we are starting it again. So welcome again. Today we have Ishraq Fataftah with us. She is a technical director at Tanush Technologies. Speaking about her experience, she has 10 years of web development experience, and she has 6 years of Sitecore hand-on experience. Uh, a very good point to note about Ishraq is she is one of the females in technology fields where the presence of females is very less in technology. Plus, she is a Sitecore MVP, so that's a good achievement from her. Uh, I will introduce to Ishraq. Hi, Ishraq.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
We are doing good. Uh, we are live, and now we can start with the presentation. Yep.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hi everyone. I know it's a little bit late in India now, so thank you all for joining me in today's session. I want to apologize if my voice is not sounding good. I had just caught cold this morning, and sometimes it's just before any presentation, like things can happen, and apparently it actually does. So welcome everyone. As you just said that I've been working with Sitecore for more than 6 years now. I can say that I've been through all the bits and pieces of Sitecore from the beginning since 5.2 till the latest 8.2. I've witnessed Sitecore developing over time, and that kind of experience actually has been astonishing, especially over the last couple of years where Sitecore has flourished as one of the main Sitecore CMSs. I will try, like people usually say that I talk much, so if I just keep talking and talking and talking, please forgive me if I just deviate from the subject a bit. In today's session, I will be talking about Helix. Everyone has been hearing about all the fuss about Habitat, Helix over the past year and so. We wanted to see what is Helix and how it can make our life easier. And I just chose uCommerce for Sitecore as an example of those features that we can actually plug it on top of the Helix structure that can make your life easy. So I don't know, like most of this talk might be, you already heard about it, but there's not gonna be, it's not bad if you're gonna hear it one more. I'm just gonna say all of this out of my own experience and our team experience working with Sitecore Helix. I can say that we started doing this over the past year when we started doing, actually the team participated in Sitecore hackathon. Habitat was used as the basis for using that, and everyone later on started to say, why Habitat? Habitat seems to be, a very slow, big project that gonna make development more hectic. The time it takes just to build one project is increasing, and if you want just to build your entire solution, that's gonna take for ages and blah blah blah. All the critiques that always start whenever you change, like when we changed from Forms for Marketers to MVC. That used to be something really big. Later on, with the introduction of web APIs, all the new, fun stuff around, dependency injection, unit testing, and all this kind of stuff, and how it can change actually the way we architect our Sitecore solutions nowadays. So I just want to go back in history, just to the beginning on how we used to develop our websites. So if you've been experiencing Sitecore, let's say just prior 6.4, when we used to have one single solution hosting everything from, like your business logic, your classes, your service calls, and everything, and like basic entity structure. We used to have Sitecore, as you can see, it's more type oriented, which means each item need to be in a specific location in the tree. So we have the template folder, which can host all our basic data definition for the website. We have the sub layouts and the XSLT. I don't know if the new guys ever heard of XSLT in Sitecore. I know it's been a nightmare, so just forget about that. So sub layouts used to reside under the layout folder, and then your settings, your items under the home tree, and all this kind of stuff. So at the beginning, everything was just based on type. So your template actually needs to reside under the templates. Your items need to be under the home. So let's say I want to create a news item. So you're going to see that just set directly under the templates folder. And as your solution structure is getting bigger and bigger, as your business requirements are changing over time, and when your content editor comes and say that, look, I'm just trying to add this more news, and the Sitecore tree is just, I can't expand it, it's just hanging out. And I'm like, if people have been using Sitecore 7 and moving forward, we never been experiencing this kind of a nightmare. But back at the time, we used to start to to divide our items through alphabetical folders that host a simple number of items that is based on how complex your Sitecore can grow. So at the time, we used to use Sitecore queries that are gonna handle just only 100 items, and if you want to expand that, then your entire solution will hang out. As our development approaches have been growing, and I've been noticing that, just prior 7.0, I can say that 7.5, 6.5, 6.6, the solution structure itself started to mature. And by saying that, companies started to realize that some certain type of projects can be used over and over and over again, and all you need is just a simple change of the layout. And by saying that, let's say you have, we have been granted the entire medical network in your country, and you're just managing different hospitals, and if you're gonna look at it from a business perspective, most of these hospitals gonna share similar modules. Let's say we have the doctor's module per se. We can have the news module, the blogs module, the location module, and the only difference between these different hospitals, besides the specific needs or specific features for that specific hospital, is going to be the general design, the general theming of such a solution implementation. So what most companies started to do is try to go through a component-based implementation, or at the time we used to call it module-based. And the basic was, okay, so most of these companies start by developing their own framework, and by saying that you have a basic solution structure that you can reuse over and over and over again, and start that as your starting point for your Sitecore implementation. And then let's say we have the news module that already been developed, released in single solution. And as you know, like business changes, bugs are reported, you can create different, branches for such modules and reuse it in different implementation. And that when say, I have this solution X, I start by my own framework that has the basic installation, then I start to plug in my own module. So I would be having the news module, then the blogs module, then the location module. And at certain point, this, like one of your clients come and say, okay, this sounds good, I like that, but like due to licensing issues, I want to host using my single instance multiple variation of this website. So they want to separate for a certain reason their blogs module that used to be hosted on WordPress, and they decided to add it to Sitecore to be better maintained through the Sitecore content tree. So you go ahead and say, okay, that can be done easy. We can use multi-sites. And as you know, like multi-sites has been a place for so long. It's just create another node next to your primary website. Through configuration, you can change the settings to map to a new different domain, and voila. The new site can reuse existing modules. To say in your base solution, you're gonna have two website solutions, one for your main site, one for your blog site, and then through Sitecore, you can go ahead and say, I'm going to share the same modules, but I'm going to use different content, or I'm going to map that to different, different domains. As it's become more complex and complex, your team comes back and say, okay, I'm going to change some sort of shared components between the two websites, and you start to add these sub-acts, and you're happy because you can extend any component you have from these modules and then share it between the two websites. So you have website one, you have your blogs, and they both share the content from the global folder you have. After time, they come, like your marketer say, okay, guys, listen, it's not working. I want to take the blogs module down. So when you come to that point of time during your Sitecore implementation, you say, okay, if I'm going to change my website now, the blogs module, then I'm going to start to remodify all the shared components because it used to be specific, modified to be shared between the two solution, and then you're going to start to reinvent the wheel or make sure that you can separate these controls in a way without affecting each other. So despite the, obvious benefits of using that module over time, the need to, if you have this module, let's say the blogs module shared between different hospitals across your clients, and one of them has discovered a bug, and how you want to make sure it is reflected on the other one, and the whole process of maintaining deployment is becoming a nightmare. Now, Sitecore, one of the issues, I'm not going to say one of the issues, but one of the challenges we used to face when we wanted to have new Sitecore developers joining the team. I'm not sure if I'm pretty sure that you can have this issue across different countries, but at least here in Jordan, because we are the only Sitecore company around, the only possible way to finding Sitecore developers is actually to hire .NET developers and then train them to become Sitecore developers. And one of the main challenges I used to face is like when they come, because like in .NET you have this best practices documents you used to use it from before. This is something like community proven. It's everyone knows. You don't have to teach people how to write object oriented or a link query or any of this stuff. And when they come to me and ask, is there any best practices for Sitecore? And my answer would be usually is, listen guys, I'm not one of those who is a big fan of having what is called best practices, but I'm gonna align with Microsoft and we say this is the recommended practice for implementing such a feature or such whatever module in Sitecore. And usually this recommended practice is based on sorry for that. And usually these best practices or recommended practices are driven by the most well-known community members. You know, like certain, this is a well-known company who has been doing Sitecore for so long, and they came with their own guidelines and practices. And if you are like a company like us, who partnership with other agencies and work on different, you know, projects and solutions over time, then you can feel the irritation we have, or you know, like the frustration. The developers come and say, "Okay, listen, we've been trained on this way of doing things, but then we realize that our partner who's working on that project is doing it in a different way. So can we say that their way is the right way, or the way that we are doing is the right way?" And that's, you know, like debatable, because it's dependent on how long have been you doing this, how many production deployments you have been doing, how many successful projects you succeeded and delivered, and then over time all these issues and you know, problems become apparent and you can fix them easily. So each company usually end up developing their own best practices, their own way of doing things, and we end up having, you know, a long chain of best practices, and you're just there to pick and choose. So Sitecore came up with Helix. It was released a couple of months just before last year's symposium, and it is the official guidelines and recommendations for developing Sitecore projects. And it has been, sorry for that, it has been recommended by Sitecore as the #1 choice for following best practices for any Sitecore implementation. Now, for Sitecore's you know, advantage for something like that, you know, most of us has issues when, you know, like when you go to support to submit a ticket, and then they come to you and say, "Can you please upload your web root along with the logs, configs, and everything, so we can reproduce this issue at our end and help you out fixing it." And again, if you are working with the clients that don't allow you to share such, you know, like environments, or at least the name of the company or client you're working with, that becomes tools like, okay, I have to get that code, rewrite it in a way where I can just mask the name of such a client and then send that to Sitecore to help me out fixing this issue. Now, if you're following the Helix standards these days, like Sitecore support have their own, you know, like let's say Habitat solution setup, and you just tell them, I have these issues in that component or in that area. And then they just gonna go and say, okay, I managed to reproduce locally, and you need to fix it in XYZ. Or, okay, let's say this is gonna be our non-issue, go back to the community and they can help you out fixing it. And, you know, like most of Sitecore community has been very, very active in the past couple of years. I've been seeing lots and lots of good blogging and articles out there, and with, you know, Stack Exchange, and all those active on Stack Overflow helped us like fixing lots and lots of issues that sometimes Sitecore support has some sort of limitation handling that. More to it, as I said previously, if you are like working in a Sitecore company and then you've moved to another company, then, you know, like the initial cost of getting you up to speed, where you're able to understand the solution structure and just have your hands on fixing stuff or developing things from scratch, has been an edge to you. So you have everything set for you from a Helix like perspective, where your code should reside, your configuration, how it configured in a way that is easy to understand and maintain, and definitely will cut the cost for the entire development, testing, and actually working on support. And I know, like, for many of us, working on support tickets is a nightmare. And whenever you are allocated on a support project where you have to, to start fixing an issue, and you have to understand how the code is written and then try to reproduce it locally, and just that feeling of not being able to just be that speedy guy, like, I'm a senior developer, I can get my hands very fast on fixing that issue, but listen, I will need to understand the solution structure, something new to me, and I will need to understand the context. So now you have the context, now you have the general idea on where to find, where to capture that issue, and that helps you definitely speed up your development time. So if you go to the Helix documentation, and guys, I'll be honest, I didn't go through that entire documentation. I don't know, I have issues with Sitecore documentation, although they fixed it many times and now it's way better thanks to Martina. But usually I find it more easier just to go through blogs and just go deep with the entire process the blog writer has gone through, see all the issues they faced around, and then come with the same realization they came to, maybe from a different context or perspective, but at least you can follow more detailed guidelines and stuff. So whenever we're talking about Helix, they just have a set of definitions, or let's say common words that all developers can communicate. Like when you come up for the first time learning Sitecore and you came from a .NET background, and all you know is classes, objects, database column, that's a database row, and that's an instance. And then you come and start to say, okay, this is a template. What is a template? And then you try to visualize that by trying to map, let's say, template to classes or to that database tables, and then, okay, what is a sub layout? And then try to map that to user controls or rendering. Or when you come say, okay, what is an item? And then you realize that an item can be resembled as an instance of an object. It's actually an instance of a class, and that all makes sense eventually. So as usual, we all have to communicate using the same language. So through Helix definitions, they basically what we are concerned with is the meaning of a module. So as we said before, usually modules has been defined as a group of components. So let's say a module can be a blog module where you have your listing, your details, your latest blogs, your featured blogs, whatsoever. And then you're going to think of, okay, I have a group of general controls like a teaser, like header, footer, and all this kind of stuff that can't just fit under a certain, general component. And Helix came and said, okay, guys, we're working modular, and what we mean by that is try to group your things thinking business-wise. So for us developers, the first thing when you think about development, any solution is like, okay, I'm going to group all functionalities that do the same thing together. I'm going to see if I can have this reusable component that I can use it across different layers, and through different modules I can use it and put it in a single module and stuff like that. So when we say we have to group your assets, and the word assets here also is tricky, because at this point we're not talking about your CSSs or your HTML and stuff like that. It's more of any group of business components that you are using. It can have your configuration along with your styles, your, like your renderings, or even local assets, what we call it, like local data for any item. Any part of that that can be contained or assembled through one business entity can be called a module. A solution and the project is what we are familiar with. Serialization is as usual as the process of serializing or like mapping your Sitecore items into file-based systems and then control that through your subversion. Both TDS and Unicorn is like the most popular examples for serialization, and that's really important concept. And if you have noticed in the Habitat, there have been many different implementation for it. It started with the Unicorn and like it had been used with TDS and other serialization as well. Tenant. So back to the tenant. I think the first time I heard about tenant, I'm gonna be honest, wasn't through the Helix documentation because I didn't read it at the time. It was through the Sitecore Accelerator Experience sessions we've been attending since the last symposium. So the idea of tenants, so let's say as in our example, that website to have to extend their main website to have a blogs website. So in that concept, we said that in this case, we're going to talk about the multi-sites. Multi-sites, it means for your single implementation, a new single instance, a new single site per instance, you can host a different number of sites that can have shared content across them. So in such implementation, you would have your own, let's say, website, the blogs module, let's say the news module on a separate domain, but all of them can be using the same global folder where we used to group all of our shared components in there, like lookups and asset settings and so forth. So this is called multi-sites. Now, when we come to much more into business grouping, let's say we have in India, let's say we have different number of hospitals in Bombay or in a different region in India. These different business groups are called tenants, and usually they do not share the same content, and they actually tend to have different user editors of content, have certain permissions to access these areas of your Sitecore tree. So it's more business oriented. Let's say you have different languages for your website. You want to display it in order. You want to have an English part of it. You want to put like French, and you want them to all have shared basic data infrastructure, like sharing same templates, rendering, and so forth, but the content is totally separate. So in that case, we can have multi-tenants supporting different instances of your websites and behaving completely in isolation from other Sitecore implementation. So back to the Sitecore architecture of how you build your Helix solution. So as we say, if we go back to the example where we, like over time you have developed your own stable, common, used component part of your site, like the logging, like let's say your indexing, these base elements of your website that once are defined and not changed. We usually use it as the basis of your any solution implementation. So that's when we start with your framework. So in your framework, it has the foundational of your website. It's where most common activities that's performed by every single project in your website are going to be used. So that goes under the framework. Then comes the domain. And in the domain layer, that's when we start talking about your specific features, like when we say like your doctors, that's more business specific. That's specific to this hospital. Is going to have their own setup of blogs. They have their own setup of news. And then comes up the project layer, and that's usually where your presentation and content resides. Now, having a more deep look into it. So we need to keep in mind that Helix defines your solution structure based on 3 layers: the foundation, the features, and the project. And an easy way, I've been actually, me and the team have been initially when we started to rebuild our website on top of Helix, had issues with to separate, the functional thinking from the business thinking. Now Helix tells you, whenever you want to build a site, you always need to think business. And what we mean by that is that business is changing. Business can be doing today something, and the next day you're gonna be doing something else. Your, let's say your home page or the landing page has 1 column layout or 2 columns layout, and after time it's gonna be changing into 3 columns layout. And then your marketers come and say, okay, we have conducted an A/B testing. And then we found that when you use a single column layout on the landing page, is actually generating less leads for your website than when we started to use the 2 columns layout, having the call to action on the right, where the first thing the user sees is that component. So this changeable aspect of the site, that's usually resides in your project. Why? Because it's, for first, as we said, like it's changeable. It's more specific to your current website, and in this case, we have the concept of multi-sites, multi-tenants. You can have your website under the project, and then you have your demo site. You decided to have a demo part of your website, then you have another project under the project. I know it's like confusing, but under the project layer, you will have your demo project, and then, okay, say I have the blogs and I just decided to get it back, have a different layout, I'm gonna put it there. Then comes the features layer, and as we said, that's where the idea of having feature-based, or what we call business-centric standalone module is going to reside. So in this case, if you have your news module, your blogs module, location module is going to be located in that layer. And the trick about that, these projects are not going to be communicating with each other. Meaning, if in the future I've decided that the blogs module is no longer needed in the project, and I want to replace that by the WordPress plugin, finally. In this case, the cost of removing that module from your current solution should be kept to the minimum. So if I decided to, like in our case, we have on our website, our own team writes the blogs on the website. So when I'm going to display the information of a blog, I would have the name of our team and, like on the author part of that blog. So I have another project that's called team members, and because I have a page, or I have like this module that has all the information of our team, their likes, their dislikes, their background, the blogs they've written, and so forth. So when I create these projects, I need to make sure that they are not dependent on each other, so you can't reference projects from the same layer, but at the same time, I can still read the information that I retrieved from a different projects. And in the next slide, I'm going to talk more to more example. And last thing is the foundation. And every time we think about the foundation, that kind of layer that's never changed, that is stable and stuff like that, always think technology. And when we say technology driven, we mean that, so the foundation is technology driven, your features layer is business driven. So at the foundation layer, If we say like, I want to be using Solar, not Lucene in my search or indexing implementation, I'm going to put it there. If I'm going to use basic theming that is loaded dynamically through the website, I'm going to put it there, because usually you're going to use the same theme or bootstrap usually for the entire website, and then you can customize it on the project level. So that's what mainly the foundation layer consists of. So as we said, it's only the dependencies from top bottom, and that's aligned with the solid principles we're going to talk about shortly. So the project is dependent on the features, and the features is dependent on the foundation. An example would be, in this case, is the search. So if we look at the site search of your website, you're going to say, okay, we have the site search. I'm going to be using Solar for the indexing, and I know that to do that, I can have an iSearchable class or interface that can be used to, I'm going to provide so the template I'm going to be searching for, the location, the general settings I'm going to be using through the search, and that's it. I'm not going to worry about if the news module is going to be using more faceted search for filtering, or I'm going to be using in the blogs to filter by the author. So in this case, your abstraction, your basic implementation of the indexing going to be residing in your framework. Then, like I recall when we used to have that, and our normal way of implementing site search, you're gonna go to the search results page and then start to wonder, okay. So in the news module, when I'm gonna display the news item, there's gonna be, the field name is news title. But if I go to the blogs, I'm gonna see like blogs title, and there's two different, like fields for the same thing. And then go to your location, say, okay, there's another field that I want to include, let's say your address, and that should be residing in the same search results page, although it's just like listing of your search results. So what happens here is that in your feature-based layer, for each of these projects is going to be implementing the indexing from the framework, and then write whatever information you want in that. So in case of the news, let's say I'm going to be displaying the news title, the date of the news, and an image. So you write your own configuration for it. You set your template, you set your location, and then you configure your module to return that certain view that has this certain shape, and then in your blogs it has the same thing, and all is independent from each other and still dependent on the like the standard search interface you've been using across the site. And then you come to your project layer, and then you go to Sitecore and say, okay, in the search results item, all I need is to define my search results page, and that's it. In my project layer, I'm only going to be setting up how my page is going to look like. So if we say that the news listing page at a certain time, like like in your news module, you have your news listing, you have your news details, you have latest news, maybe some sort of related news to that certain news, and you have it developed inside your feature layer. So in your project layer, you're gonna come and define your basic page types, and you're gonna say, okay, my news listing page, I'm going to be adding the news listing rendering, and I'm going to put my related news in that control, and then when I go to the news details page, I'm going to define my news details and maybe add some gallery control. So that's left to your content editor to play around and to define and shape as they see fit. One thing also that is important when dealing with Helix is the different template types. I think like through implementing so many Sitecore implementations, like visually or logically, you can group your items to those that only hold content and those who hold your pages. So when we come to your page, like your items that reside under the home tree, these are the ones that are going to hold your presentation details. So these are the ones who call page type templates, and you can plug in whatever rendering you want on that item, and definitely it's going to be residing in your project layer. Why is that? Because that's when we say the least stable, the most changeable layer in your project, and you can change it whenever you want. Then it comes your content template that holds like your basic information, like the news template, and these are called interface templates. Usually, these are gonna, like not usually, for sure these are going to be holding only content, and it's not gonna hold any kind of presentation details to it. And these are the ones who reside in your feature or foundation layer. Then it comes the data source. So in cases of having, over the past couple of years, Sitecore have been trying to promote or making everyone try to go through the MVC track and using data sources that is going to help the experience editor to help content editors, just put your rendering the set data source and everything is working. So data source is still working the same. It holds no page layout or presentation for your pages, and it's just going to act as your data source. So we can say we have your categories, your tags for blogs. All this can be set as data sources if that's the only place they're going to be showing, and it's going to be under your project. Why? Because data source is going to vary and be changed on different sites or tenants across your Sitecore instance. Then we have the folder templates, and I think most of us has used folder templates to set, like distinguishing icons for such folders, so we don't, when your Sitecore tree is really big and you just start to forget what or how to reach your single item, and then, to set your insert options to it, and your settings template that can hold any setting related information, like we can use it for your basic email or SMTP information, maybe sometimes your production or CDCM URLs and so forth. So that was Helix, and I know I've been talking a lot about it, but it's really important to understand that such architecture, and when we say, such infrastructure allow you to put in the feature layer whatever third-party module you have in mind. So let's say, and I'm going to be using a real case in our example, is that the first time we encountered uCommerce was 2 years ago, I think. And at the time, we had no idea what is uCommerce is. And then we had to, do our own research, get help from people just to understand what is uCommerce and how we can integrate it within our project. And then when we started to work on it, the question was, should it be located within, under the website, like any other module? Or should we separate it in its own project that can host, like the product listing, product details, checkout information, or just leave it to the content editor to do whatever they want? So in this case, using the Helix structure, all you need to know is just, okay, this is business driven. So my business said that I need a shopping project. Okay, then I'm going to put that as a feature inside my project. Why? Because it's gonna hold my product listing, my product details, my categories, my shopping information, my shipping information, and my payment details. So as is, if I decided in the future that, okay, I'm not gonna use uCommerce in this case, I'm going to use Sitecore commerce engine that they released recently, and we can see that it's benefiting us more, then all we need is to implement that as a feature, and in case we decided just to change it, just take off that part. So in a nutshell, what is uCommerce? So uCommerce is a .NET-based e-commerce system that is integrated with Sitecore in a very unique way. And I'll be frank, I haven't experienced working with other e-commerce systems like Active Commerce or Sitecore Commerce, but I know one of the really important features of uCommerce is the fact that it can reside inside your content management, meaning that your content editor can just go there. I know it's going to be tricky because this is one of the, I'm not going to say downfalls, but I'll say more challenging for content editors to go to the uCommerce interface, define products and all product information from the uCommerce interface, and then go back to Sitecore and use these products. So I think this one is a plus for them, and it uses framework first philosophy. What does that mean is the framework that is used to the actual APIs that uCommerce team used to build the entire uCommerce platform can be used directly by developers. So you can just go ahead and extend any of these APIs, let's say do a certain customization, change the entire process at ease without the need to, contact uCommerce and say, guys, I have this change and the customer now don't want the price information to be within products, they wanted to get from a third-party solution. Can you please provide us with an API that has different signature and stuff like that? Using this philosophy, you can just be aligned with Sitecore and the ability to, use dependency injection and, the ability to extend any kind of feature in Sitecore based on your business needs. So, as I just said, it's not just a platform that is, I just download it and have a demo that's up for use. No, it helps you as a developer to define the actual products and the actual store that you are going to be developing based on your customer need. So if they decide, you're not bounded to a certain implementation or a certain way of handling. If they decide to not support payment, you can just simply remove that feature. You're not bounded to a predefined process of doing things. So uCommerce is built on top of the solid principle, and I think for every developer of us has been, been in a situation where he gets a task that say, I don't want it to be working this way. I don't want, the publish button just to go and publish data. I want to have a preview for items first. I don't want to go and see what am I going to publish, everything. I want to see all the modified items in front of me and then click publish. And then you think, okay, how am I going to accomplish that? So you go to, your core database, customize the ribbon, add the button there, put a couple of pipelines, and that's it. And I think that's one of the most exciting and provoking experiences you have like a Sitecore developer, because you had the option to override whatever you want, and uCommerce has just been using the same philosophy, following the solid principles, so you can have an easy implementation process for whatever business need you have. As I think all of you are familiar with what SOLID stands for, so I'm going to go through that very quickly. So a single responsibility principle, that means you own class or interface should only have information related to that business entity. So let's say I have my payment information, everything that's going to affect my payment should reside in a single class. My let's say address in a different class, my user information in a different class. Open to close principle, and that means that my classes are open for extension and not for modification. And what does we mean by that? We say like we will need to have okay, the risk of substitution principle. It says that your class can be implemented with your own definition, but it should be still conforming to the base class. So what does that mean? Your base class is still closed. You have to use it, but you have the chance to extend it with whatever implementation you have. Interface segregation principle, and that means your interface should be isolated from modification from other classes. And dependency inversion principle is actually the utilization of dependency injection. So uCommerce is built on top of a number of core functionalities, or we call it foundations. So what's nice about uCommerce is to have a well-defined process or way of doing things. So I'm going to come back to this slide, but I'm going to just go quickly here to see what's this foundation. So we have the catalog foundation, we have the transaction foundation, marketing foundation, social commerce, and social search foundation. So a catalog foundation, or just say your store, it actually resembles your store, which means you have your basic store that's going to be selling your clothing. You have another store that's going to be selling foods. You have your own store that's going to be selling pet food. So every single of these business needs can have their own catalog. So inside the catalog, you create your own store. And then you have the product information management. And as you can imagine, it gives you the control to define every single aspect of your own product, starting from different type of products, specifications, variations, even to prices and analytics. I'm going to talk about it later. Content management and multi-channel, and that's where uCommerce is integrated with Sitecore. We're going to see now how you can, once you install uCommerce for Sitecore, it's going to be within your content management system, where you can access it like any other application in your Sitecore desktop, and then do all the work from there. The social commerce, that's that model actually helps you to store comments, ratings, and any other, like user feedback for these products. Your order management, and that controls the process of selling or purchasing a product from your store, and that's handled through the transaction foundation. Your marketing foundation, and it's built on 3 principles, which are the advertise, act, and reward. And what we mean by that, and you're going to see it shortly through the uCommerce interface, is that you need to tell your customer that you have something to sell. So let's say we want to advertise for sales on t-shirts on Friday. So what you do first is to allocate this kind of campaign, and it's not different than your regular Sitecore campaign management, where you say, okay, I would have a campaign on product X, Y, and Z. You can go back up to your store, so you can say you have 70% sales on your clothing, you have 20% sales on your food store, and you have like 15% sales on your pet food store. And then we have the act. So you want users to actually engage with these campaigns. And that's when you say, like, if the user has been visiting this item or this product more than 5 times now, then most likely he's interested with it. So I'm going to offer him or her like 15% discount. And the reward comes when the customer actually sees the actual price and then the discount on it, and then they go and purchase it if you're lucky. We have the search platform, and uCommerce actually uses their own, not their own actually, a different search or document-based search engine, and they have the integration API platform, and we're going to see in subsequent slides that the strength of working with uCommerce is the direct utilization of their APIs, and that's the framework-first approach they're using. So if we're going to take a look at uCommerce from more technology perspective, it uses for search the Raven database. It's a document-based, an open source database, document-based engine that allows you to actually perform faceted search or full text search on your products. Definitely, you can use your own provider with this Lucene or Solar. You can easily change that. We're gonna see that once you install uCommerce for Sitecore, it's gonna create their own tables inside your web database and enable to interact with these, like with these tables to create, edit, or delete. They use in Hibernate. And for dependency injection, they're using Castle, Windsor, and for their web services management to to interact between the front end and back end. They're not using web APIs or other type of RESTful services. They're using what's called the service stack, and it's also an open source service management tool that allows you to asynchronously talk between your front end and back end. So as I said, like, your database is the basis for your website, and they're using in Hibernate to communicate with it. Then it comes the services layer using the stack services, using dependency injection and IOC to actually call and interact with your products they are using in the infrastructure layer. And the top level APIs, we're going to see through code. That's when they call different, like products, your catalogs, your customer information, orders and address, and so forth. Since we're talking about the solid principle and the ability to use dependency injection and actually to build your own custom implementation of any part of your uCommerce process, definitely you're going to use pipelines, and it's like similar to Sitecore. It's a series of tasks that is executed in order, and an example of that would be the basket. Just let me show you the basket config. I think I have it on the other window. So in the basket config, it's one of the most famous configs inside the uCommerce is the basket. So this is the definition of your pipeline. It talks with a model from the purchase order using entities version 2, and then your list of tasks are defined and executed in order. So based on the values you have here on top, let's say this one is used to remove generated order lines. Remove generated order lines, you will have the task definition downstairs that defines your component, the service it's used, and the namespace of that task. So the basic entity, or let me open Sitecore as well. Just hoping it's not gonna be too slow today. So once you, let's start from here. Once you install your Sitecore, your uCommerce package for Sitecore, I'm gonna just go there. You will have a different section to go to. It's been very slow today, I have no idea why. Maybe the demo guides are not happy today. So this is your commerce section. It have a quick access to your catalog manager, your order manager, your promotion, and commerce settings. So the one I'm going to use, this is like a quick access to your list of orders, your list of catalogs, and how you're gonna define the commerce or marketing aspects of your campaign. So by going to the commerce settings, just going to refresh this. So this is the interface. This is the uCommerce application that you can access from your Sitecore. And this is the subsequent representation of it in the Sitecore tree. And that's the part that I've been saying it's a little bit might be confusing for content editors to have that adding, because we went through this, like mistake before. First time we worked with uCommerce, we started to add our products and definitions directly from the Sitecore tree, and this is not how it's handled. Everything you created through the uCommerce app is resembled back to the Sitecore tree, so it's easy to be, processed later on. You can find it also under the templates, and it holds all your definition. But as we said, that the tricky part is everything is done from this interface and it's reflected back to your content tree. So as we said, I'm just using the basic installation package. I didn't have the chance to actually build more products into it. I got my site crashed last night, and it's just like took me a while to just get a stable version of it. So I'm going to stick with the uCommerce store that we have in here. Just want to jump in here to the different sections of it. So we have the stores, you have your orders, you have the marketing, and the settings. So inside your settings, you have the basic definitions of how your entire products and catalogs are going to look like. So this is my product definitions. This is where I'm going to be specifying different product families. So uCommerce supports having a product family and then products under that type. So let's say we have a tiles website. So we will have a product family that calls tiles, and then underneath that we have the categories. So under these categories, let's say we have in this case, you have support and software, and under that you will have a list of your products grouped by these categories. All of this is happening down there inside the category under the definition. So here you can say that this software category needs to be part of a product family, and then you can define whatever aspects you want for such category. Sorry. Same thing with your payment. I'm gonna go through this in subsequent slides. So your catalog, which is actually related to your store, can be created here from Sitecore. You can call it whatever you want. You can have, in our case, one for clothing, one for food, one for beds. And then underneath that, you start to define your categories. In Sitecore, actually, and your Visual Studio, I'm losing my presentation, okay. So we said that the basis of doing uCommerce implementation is the usage of the uCommerce API. And this, in this case, they actually follow the same, like API definition. So every time you're going to deal with any of the basic foundation of uCommerce, you're going to be using the uCommerce namespace .api, and then for our catalog, we're going to use the catalog library. If we are using products, we're going to use the product library. If we are using transaction, we're going to use the transaction library, and so forth. So if I want to get all the catalogs, or let's say I want to have in my navigation my different number of stores, in this case, all I need is to use the get all catalogs. So using the get all catalogs, it returns a list of product catalog, and you can do whatever you want in the information retrieved. You can use it as a navigation, you can use it as a list of different catalog, or you can actually, instead of using all your catalogs, you can go and select a single catalog once you enter that store. So let's say I entered the clothing store, then the uCommerce, using the uCommerce connector, gonna override, or let's say it's going to store the information of the current store you are in, and then using the get catalog is going to use the context to get inside that catalog. And our Visual Studio, just to go quickly through the architect of the project, I'm just used the simple habitat solution. So as you said, you have the feature layer, the foundation, and the project. And in this case, I added uCommerce under the shopping module I wanted to have. So you can find here everything related to the shopping module, including the controllers, the pipelines, the views, even the models in a single location. So in the future, if you just decided to no longer support shopping on your website, all you need is just to remove the shopping project, and nothing can affect your other projects or other modules. So I'm just going to go quickly to this controller. And as we said, just back to the Sitecore tree. So this is our store, and under our store we have the categories. So you can build this navigation menu that can group products by software or by support. All you need is to go through same thing, uCommerce API, catalog, library, and get all your categories. Or you can loop through every single item of this, and then just display their ID, provide your own implementation, and let's say you want this category view model, you can define it as you wish, and then display whatever information you have in mind. As for the product, you can add product. I think people who are very familiar with uCommerce, with Umbraco, gonna find the interface is very similar to their experience. You can come here and start adding products to your categories. In this case, we have a product called uCommerce. You can have all the basic information you define, including your SKU number, default information, like if you want it to be displayed on your website, allow ordering or not. And then in the English section, and you can have as many languages for content as you want based on your website. So if I have an Urdu language, we can see another tab in here that's going to display, allow you to put content in Urdu and so forth. And this is the categories list, and in this case, the uCommerce product is from a software category, related products in case you have any products related to this one. You can upload your primary image, your thumbnail image, and if you have any other type of fields, you can always go and create your own one through the data types. So let's say we have a thumbnail that have a text next to it. So you can just go to the data types, create your own definition, and then just use that. So to use the product uCommerce API, all you need is just to follow the same thing. You use your runtime to get your catalog from the context, and then you can get the current product you are using. Sorry, I know I'm just going through the code. Maybe it has been easier if we have an interface for it, but unfortunately, I think after using the latest Habitat structure, I get errors all the time. My IS just broke and I have no longer been able to get it working, but at least through the basic use of the APIs, you can access whatever information you want. So for the product, we can access the SKU information, the variation, the description, and even get the price information for that product just using the uCommerce API. I'll go back to the database schema in a bit, but as I mentioned before, you can find all the information of your database just inside your web database. So once it's installed, you can see all different tables inside your web database, and it has every single definition of every single thing used in your uCommerce website. Transaction, it's one of the main most important foundations in uCommerce, and it is used to add your items or your products to the basket, and then update your billing information, your address information, your shipment, and all of these things using the transaction foundation. In this case, as we just mentioned before, like the basket config is the most important. You can define or hook whatever process you have in mind. So in case of having, let's say this product is for free. So instead of during the transaction process is to go to the payment pipeline, you can just check in there if your product is free. If the price is zero, you can skip the payment and go to the shipping details directly. And all of this is just by overriding a single pipeline and overriding that in the config file. So basically, following the same button, the uCommerce.api.transaction library, you can check if you have already basket defined. If yes, you can get the basket and get all the information from it. If you want to add products to the basket, all you need to do is just use the method that's called add to basket. If you want to update it or the quantity or any information related to it, all you need to do is just update that basket line. And the most important thing for any modification on the basket to always execute the basket pipeline. And inside that, as we said, that you're gonna check if your inventory, if you have enough products for that item. If not, it's gonna display an error or whatever sequence of events you have in mind for that process. So I'm going just to go to basket controller. And the basket controller actually is dependent also on your orders that has been created for every single interaction with the product. So every time I add an item to my basket or a product to my basket, an order on a purchase order is going to be created, and that's going to be used across the entire checkout process to handle your products and to ship them to your address. So once you get your basket, you get the purchase order. Based on it, you get your order lines, and by that we have the list of products you have in that basket, and you can display it directly. Billing and shipping. Also, these are one of the most important features of uCommerce. It comes with a huge list of payment methods integration that you can define inside your website. So if we go to our payment method, you can see that you can use eBay, you can use SavePay, WorldPay, Global Collect, different type of methods, along with all the related information, URLs and callback information you need. And you can just define that I want to go through a credit card process, I want to go through sending an invoice, and then based on it you can define more information related to that payment method. Same thing with the shipping. It comes with a list of countries that you can ship to, currencies available, and you can add as much as currencies you wish to have, your countries, and the uCommerce API. If we go to the billing, it can get your shipping information or your billing information. Sorry for that. Have it on the slide. You can get your shipping method to a specific country or payment method. In this case, it's saying India have just a certain number of allowable payment methods, and let's say PayPal is not one option. Then you can define these payment methods specific to that country, and then using a get payment method for that specific country, you can get your payment options and display it to the end user. So, get shipping information. So the transaction library also interacts directly with your account or your context. And once there's different way of handling this, you can either promote the user to fill a form, and during the checkout process, you can just go and put all the shipment information you have, including the country, the address details, and so forth. Or you can use whatever login mechanism you are using. Say you have an integration with Active Directory at any process or stage in here. So in your controller, instead of using the transaction library to get your information, you can just use the Sitecore context to get your logged in user information, use that as the basis for your transaction. Now, nice thing about using uCommerce is that they have a full documentation for every single transaction you have. So if you go to their website, and it's actually a very rich one. So it's going to open. Okay. Gives you a detailed information on how to use every single API in it, and then show you how you can override such transactions. So let's say I want to get to see dynamic order list, then you will have an entire code snippet that helps you to locate the current order and then define your order properties. In this case, if you have a serial number, if you have a gift message, and then to place your order. Same thing with anything that comes to mind. Like in the social commerce, it helps you to work with how you can add comments to products and then use that later on to display on the site. I think that's all for me. there. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
We are just checking the Twitter handle. There seems no questions on Twitter. No questions. No. So thank you, Ishraq, for the presentation and taking us through the Helix and Sitecore uCommerce. I will allow Kiran to speak for the closing notes.
Yeah, I think
Thank you guys for having me.
yeah, thanks a lot, Ishraq. I know that you are having cold and your laptop thought to crash before the demo, as it happens. But thanks for showing the courage. And as I think we discussed, that is the first time you have been doing. So you did a good job, and you covered especially the hot topic, which is the Helix one, which is really awesome thing. I'm sure everyone finds it helpful. We'll share all the content and all the stuff available throughout the website. At the same time, would request if anyone you would like to present on Sitecore Group India, just fill out the form which you will tweet in some time, and catch you in the next session. Thanks, Ishraq. Have a good day and take care.
You too, and thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you.